Why did Jesus call the Canaanite woman a dog? In Matthew chapter 15, verses 21 to 28, Jesus encounters a Canaanite woman who begs him to cure her daughter. Jesus initially refuses her request by saying, "It is not right to take the children's bread and toss it to the dogs." Matthew 15, verse 26. Taken out of context, and especially in English, it's easy to mistake this for an insult. In the flow of the story, however, it's clear Jesus is creating a metaphor meant to explain the priorities of his ministry. He is also teaching an important lesson to his disciples. Jews in Jesus' day sometimes refer to Gentiles as dogs. In Greek, this word is kuon, meaning wild cur. Matthew 7, verse 6, Luke 16, verse 21, Philippians 3, verse 2. Non-Jews were considered so unspiritual that even being in their presence could make a person ceremonially unclean. John 18, verse 28. Much of Jesus' ministry, however, involved turning expectations and prejudices on their heads. Matthew 11, verse 19, John 4, verses 9 to 10. According to Matthew's narrative, Jesus left Israel and went into Tyre and Sidon, which was Gentile territory. Matthew 15, verse 21. When the Canaanite woman approached and repeatedly asked for healing, the disciples were annoyed and asked Jesus to send her away. Matthew 15, verse 23. At this point, Jesus explained his current ministry in a way that both the woman and the watching disciples could understand. At that time, his duty was to the people of Israel, not to the Gentiles, as noted in Matthew 15:24. Recklessly taking his attention from Israel, in violation of his mission, would be like a father taking food from his children in order to throw it to their pets, as described in Matthew 15:26. The exact word Jesus used here in Greek was kunarion, meaning small dog or pet dog. This is a completely different word from the term kuon, used to refer to unspiritual people or to an unclean animal. Jesus frequently tested people to prove their intentions, often through response questions or challenges, as seen in John 4:16 through 18 and John 4:50 through 53. His response to the Canaanite woman is similar. In testing her, Jesus declined her request and explained that she had no legitimate expectation of his help. The woman, however, lived out the principle Jesus himself taught in the parable of the persistent widow, found in Luke 18:1 through 8. Her response proved that she understood fully what Jesus was saying, yet had enough conviction to ask anyway. As noted in Matthew 15:27, Jesus acknowledged her faith, calling it great, and granted her request as described in Matthew 15:28. So, according to both the context and language involved, Jesus wasn't referring to the Canaanite woman as a dog, either directly or indirectly. He wasn't using an epithet or racial slur, but making a point about the priorities he'd been given by God. He was also testing the faith of the woman and teaching an important lesson to his disciples. Let's continue this important discussion by diving deeper into the story. What was the Canaanite woman's response to Jesus? Matthew 15:27 captures the response of a Canaanite woman to Jesus. She said, "Yes, Lord, yet even the dogs eat the crumbs that fall from their master's table." Here is the complete conversation. And Jesus went away from there and withdrew to the district of Tyre and Sidon. And behold, a Canaanite woman from that region came out and was crying, "Have mercy on me, O Lord, Son of David. My daughter is severely oppressed by a demon." But he did not answer her a word. And his disciples came and begged him, saying, "Send her away, for she is crying out after us." He answered, "I was sent only to the lost sheep of the house of Israel." But she came and knelt before him, saying, "Lord, help me." And he answered, "It is not right to take the children's bread and throw it to the dogs." She said, "Yes, Lord, yet even the dogs eat the crumbs that fall from their master's table." Then Jesus answered her, "O woman, great is your faith. Be it done for you as you desire." And her daughter was healed instantly. Matthew 15:21-28, ESV. What an admirable, brave, and wise woman she was. The interaction between Jesus and the Canaanite woman might offend modern sensibilities. Some progressives have accused Jesus of racism for referring to her as a dog. This stems from viewing Scripture through 21st century lenses. Jesus' statement, "It is not right to take the children's bread and throw it to the dogs," is a metaphor that highlights the prevailing sentiment of the time. The children represent the Jews, while the dogs are the Gentiles. Jews considered Gentiles to be unclean and called them kuon, wild cur, primarily for religious rather than ethnic reasons. In the text, the woman is not offended by Jesus' words. Instead, she acknowledges the way she is viewed by the Jews. It is likely that she was familiar with the statement and the concept of the Messiah as a deliverer of the Jews. We should also note that Jesus calls her Canaanite a pet dog, which subtly deviates from the Jewish sentiment. Her response demonstrates both humility and faith. While accepting that Jesus came to feed the children, she asserts that the dogs, the Gentiles, need whatever Jesus has to offer, even if it is only in little quantities. Just as dogs eat crumbs from a table, Gentiles can also benefit from Jesus' mission, although his priority at that point was the Jews. The Canaanite woman did not ask that the children might be deprived of any fragment of their portion, but taking her place contentedly among the dogs, she could still claim him as her master and ask for the crumbs of his mercy. The fact that she calls Jesus Lord and does not use a more familiar term like rabbi is also significant. Jesus commends her faith and grants her request. Jesus acts intentionally, so his initial refusal of the woman's request served a purpose. His movement to Tyre and Sidon, a Gentile area, was also deliberate. Earlier in Matthew chapter 15, verse 27, Jesus had rebuked the Pharisees for prioritizing man-made traditions above God's commands. He also demonstrated that a person's heart condition is what matters, and he always honors faith. His interaction with the Canaanite woman served as a lesson for the disciples that even Gentiles can exhibit faith, further revealing that sin is what makes a person unclean, not traditions or ethnicity. Even in the Old Testament, Gentiles could be part of God's people when they turned from their pagan ways and toward God. This was the case with Rahab and Ruth. Although God chose the Jews as his people, Gentiles were always included in his plan. See Isaiah chapter 49, verse 6, chapter 56, verses 6 through 7, Zechariah chapter 2, verse 11, Psalm 117, verse 1. Jesus illustrates this through the response of the Canaanite woman, who showed that even the least of Christ is precious to a believer, even the very crumbs of the bread of life. Finally, Matthew chapter 15, verse 27 foreshadowed a time when Gentiles will not only pick up crumbs, but also have a share in the meal of salvation. This was accomplished in Acts chapter 10 and continues to happen today.